everybody, it's Dana. Following on in our little series about getting a new dog, wanted to share with you some thoughts about what we feed them. So if we're getting a dog from a breeder, then we often have the opportunity to do at least a transitionary diet where we can use a little bit of what they've been feeding and then move them into the type of food that we want to feed our dog. Transitions of food can be really difficult on our dog's digestive system. So I generally recommend about a 10-day transition if we're changing food. Depending on what they've been eating, sometimes I just go for the gusto and make a hard change. I will especially do that if I'm pulling a dog out of the shelter and some rescue groups that got, for whatever reason, may not have the higher end brands of food that they've been feeding based on donations. And so I totally get that. But when we want to elevate our dog's quality of nutrition, we need to take a little bit of time and use some supportive effort to do that. So that transitionary period is generally about 2 or 3 days of 3/4 of the old food and 1/4 of the new. After about 3 days, you move to half and half, and 3 more days, you move to about 1/4 of the old and 3/4 of the new. And then within about 9 to 10 days, you're completely transitioned to the new food. During that time, I like to support the dog's digestive system with a little bit of Digest. We have 2 options. We have Digest Vitality that can be added directly into the food bowl, or we can use Digest on a topical application on their belly. If you have a very young puppy, like a brand new puppy, or a tiny dog, tiny breed dog, then you might want to take that and dilute it with a little bit of carrier oil. And for me, that not only means, just adding the carrier to the drop of oil and spreading that around on the belly, for example, it means making a new dilution. So for example, I might take 5 or 6 drops of the oil and 5 or 6 drops of the carrier in a new bottle, and then take a drop or 2 of that so that I'm getting a dilution, a true dilution. And so if it's a small dog, I might dilute it even more, meaning, 1 drop of oil to 10 drops of carrier, for example, and really trying to work that out based on the age and the size of the dog. So we'll talk more about dilutions in the future. If you have questions, immediate questions about that, let me know, and I'll try to bump that up on the priority. But you can help support the digestive system with essential oils. I want you all to think about what's going into the dog. There are different grades of food, just like we think about different qualities of essential oils. Not all are created equal. There are certainly low end, no nutritional value. There are mid-grade products. We tend to say these foods might help our dogs stay alive, but it's not going to help them have optimal health. It's not going to give them sort of this longevity approach of this natural wellness that we're trying to do. So there are 3 or 4 brands of kibble that sort of rank into this higher quality kibble, but it's still kibble. It's still commercially prepared. It is still highly processed, synthetic. Sometimes these are better in terms of the synthetic quality, but we have vitamins and minerals that have to get added back in because it's been cooked out of the food in the first place. So when you're in these mid-grade foods, know that they're adding in synthetic vitamins and minerals. Some vitamins and minerals added back are important, but most of it's going out the back end. So some is better than none, but it's still not optimal. So you may need to find supplementation depending on your choices of food. especially if you're staying in that category of kibble. If you are moving into a home prepared food, there are a number of considerations that you have to keep in mind relative to balancing the diet. That includes the fat content, the calcium content, the phosphorus ratio to the calcium, protein percentage. And then we move into what type of protein makes the most sense. A lot of people get into this notion that we need fish oil, for example. So we're going to feed our dog fish in order to help support the skin and the coat. When in fact, depending on the choice of food that we're using, the choice of fish that we're using, we might be throwing the body's balance out just a little bit. So food leads us down into this area of behavior and wellness. And when we think about traditional Chinese medicine, foods do certain things in the body to help warm the body or cool the body and keep it in a balanced state. When that gets out of whack, we start to see dogs that can have behavioral issues. I have seen food alone start to diminish dogs who have aggressive behaviors, right? When we have dogs that should be sort of active and happy-go-lucky and, sort of bounding in the yard, and they're more content to just be on the couch and lazy and looking for a blanket to get under, even when it's hot outside, that tells us something about how the body is responding to its nutrition, right? So the instincts and the genetics of the breed definitely come into play relative to what we need to do to fuel that body. So keep that in mind. So back to this home prepared food, most people they say, I'm going to feed my dog better than kibble, and I'm going to give them lean chicken, some rice, and some peas and some carrots or some green beans. That is actually not nutritionally balanced. Your dog needs fat in his diet. So it would be most likely, depending on dog. And so again, this is general information I share with you because I can't give you a customized plan without knowing your dog. But generally speaking, it's better to use dark meat. It's higher in fat, and keep the skin on the meat, right? We can't just give dogs there's a calcium to phosphorus ratio, for example. So if we just start throwing meat in the bowl, think hamburger or chicken and things of that nature in the bowl, without finding a calcium source somewhere, which is usually the bone, then we're throwing the body's balance off, right? So it's not just about the meat. It's about all that comes with that. If we are throwing rice in the bowl, lots of rice, we're just adding lots of carbs to the diet. Carrots basically turn to sugar. Peas basically turn to sugar. And so these are all things that we know can create additional issues in the body when we're trying to be less carbohydrate loaded, right? We need antioxidants. Even puppies can be antioxidant deficient. So we got to figure out where we're going to get those antioxidants. As we're moving through and our dogs are aging, and they all do every day, we might need to increase the antioxidant level. We might need to increase the fat level. We might need to increase the vitamin level based on what that dog's body tells us. And it does. It tells us a story every single day when we start to look at the pieces of the puzzle. There are raw diets that a lot of people are following. I am not one personally to go out and source an animal, right? I don't want to get into the habit of feeding only chicken to my dogs all the time. And in fact, chicken would not be my first protein source anyway. Chicken is a known source of allergen to our dogs. It also is known to cause inflammation in the body. So lots of issues there. But when we think about calculating all of this stuff, you've got to go find the meat, you got to find the organs, because it's not about just having the protein, it's the ratios of meat to organ, muscle meat, calcium in the bone, and then whatever vitamins and minerals, and where are we going to get those, from what vegetables or from what fruits are we going to put in the bowl. Did you know that it's better to feed fruits separate and apart from the protein sources, which is why Volhard has a product that separates those two out, right? So use your fruits, for example, as a protein, but keep in mind, if you've got a dog with some health issues, adding in even natural sugars might not be your best option. I chose the Volhard food because it's more convenient for me. It is everything you need in this freeze-dried mix. You add water to it, and then you add fresh meat to it every day. But the calcium and the phosphorus and the vitamins and the minerals, they are non-synthetic, and they're in that mixture in the right ratio based on the amount of meat that I add to the diet, which is based on the weight of the dog, right? So that was a more convenient option for me. Keep in mind that when you go to some of the refrigerated sections of these dog food aisles in the grocer or pet retailer, and you get these tubes of food, they're not necessarily raw meats. They may, in fact, just be a remarketed version of canned dog food. Now, if we'll do the food ladder, I'll do that presentation again soon. Canned food can be actually more nutrient rich than kibble because it has not been processed, has not been cooked as long as kibble would have been, right? And it has more moisture in it. Moisture is a big deal, right? Because the body, and I'm going to attach this link into the video or into the post, but moisture has to come into the digestive system to start to break down the kibble. It takes kibble about 15 hours to leave or to become usable energy in the body, right? That's a long time. That means basically the digestive system is never turned off, which if you get into this traditional Chinese medicine thing and you look at how the circadian clock functions and what the organs of the body are doing, not only seasonally, but daily, right? That means the digestive system is never turned off. It's never off the clock. It's having to function a lot. But where does that moisture come from? Because it went in dry, right? So depending on how much water your dog had to drink that day, it's pulling reserve stores of moisture from other organs, liver, kidney, heart, skin, right? It's pulling that. There's a depletion of moisture from those other organs. It's actually called robbing, moisture robbing, to begin that digestive process. So if you are feeding kibble, just adding a little bit of moisture to the bowl is beneficial. But these raw diets are certainly helping us provide less of that moisture robbing going on. And it takes only about 4 hours for the body to digest those foods. And they're more of what would be called evolutionary appropriate for your dog to eat in the first place, right? So lots to consider when you're making your decision about food. I am a big fan of raw diets. Again, I use what I call a sort of modified raw because I'm not going out and sourcing all the pieces and the parts. I like the mix, and I like adding the fresh meat to it every day. That's easy, that's quick, that's convenient. The food's delivered to my door, and then I just pick up the meat at the market. Usually about once a month, I buy enough for the whole month. And then I sort of rotate those proteins on an as needed basis so that they get some variance in that. But for the most part, it's hamburger about 5 days a week. And then sometimes we'll rotate in some sort of fish, maybe egg, cottage cheese. Now, my dogs do not do well with dairy, but you've got options with that. So my point here is, you're bringing home this new dog. You need to transition. You need to support that transition with some essential oils. And you need to think about longevity. You need to think about what is going to be nutrient rich, nutrient balanced, and what is going to sustain your dog over the course of life, right? And that it's going to help minimize the possibility of excess carbohydrates, excess synthetics, things of that nature that could lead to additional problems in the future. 50% plus of our animals will have cancer in their lifetime. That's a big number, y'all. That's a huge number. And nutrition is one of the core things you can do to try and mitigate that from happening. We can't prevent everything. We just can't. But we don't have to be locked into the genetics if we do things that help the body help itself and do things that help the body thrive versus just exist. So if I can help you with nutrition, if you're interested in discussing sort of a wellness overview, this Chinese medicine discussion, it is amazing how when you feed the dog the right thing for his needs, which can be emotional needs as well, you start to see some pretty amazing results. And sometimes it's only food that you need to change. So good luck with that, and let me know how I can help.